Hey guys, tonight we wander beneath a canopy so thick it swallows sunlight, where vines curl like sleeping serpents, and the air clings to your skin like a damp secret. You're pushing through dense, steaming rainforest, somewhere in what's now southern Mexico or Guatemala. But don't bother checking your GPS. It won't help here. You're not exactly now anymore. You're walking into the cradle of one of the most sophisticated civilizations in the pre-Columbian Americas. And your sandals are about to squelch into 2000 BCE. The jungle hums with a steady rhythm of insects, frogs, and something else. Stone being struck. Not carved into masterpieces just yet, but shaped. Primitive tools chip away at limestone as early Mayan villagers construct their first settlements, squat clusters of thatched homes built around fire pits and small altars. These aren't the glittering cities of later centuries, but they're growing, tucked into the folds of the Petén Basin, like dreams beginning to solidify into stone. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who's drifting off to Mayan drums from halfway across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch beside a family wrapping tamales in corn husks. The father's hands are stained with soil. The mother hums while grinding maize on a heavy metate. That smell, earthy, warm, and nutty. Fresh mesa meeting steam. Maize isn't just dinner here, it's divine. In the Mayan creation story, gods crafted humans from cornmeal after failing with mud and wood. Which, honestly, explains a lot about why they hold corn festivals instead of tree bark parades. You're standing on the edge of history's warm-up act. These Preclassic Maya haven't yet built pyramids or developed a full writing system, but they've nailed the essentials: farming, community, and an intense fascination with time and ritual. And they do not do anything halfway. Even now, small altars bloom with offerings, bits of food, carved figurines, jade beads, small gestures to big powers. Mainstream fact. The earliest known Maya villages date back to around 2000 BCE, and they already show signs of organized agriculture and religious practice. These folks didn't just wake up one day in massive cities. They built up to it, generation by generation, mound by mound. And what's wild, your quirky detail for the evening, is how even back then, they were casually experimenting with rubber. Yes, rubber. You peek past a tree trunk and see a boy bouncing a lump of hardened latex between two flat stones. Olmecs might have kicked off the rubber obsession, but Maya joined the game early. Little did they know that this jungle playtime would one day lead to one of the world's oldest team sports. No biggie. As the forest thickens, you walk into Nakbe, one of the first known Mayan city centers. It's no bustling metropolis yet, but you can already hear the heartbeat of something bigger. Ceremonial platforms, carved stelae, and raised causeways hinting at what's coming. Elevated roads stretch from village to village, almost daring future generations to build upon them. Historians still argue whether Nakbe was more of a ceremonial site or a functioning city-state. But you can feel it already trying to be both. Climbing one of those early platforms, you get a better look at the surrounding terrain, lush and rolling, with wetlands shimmering between patches of jungle. The land is rich, but also moody. Too much rain drowns crops. Too little scorches them. So these early Maya are already adapting. They carve canals and dig drainage ditches. Their calendar isn't just spiritual, it's survival. One elder guides you through his garden plot, pointing proudly to manioc and chili peppers. His fingers brush over cacao pods hanging like swollen gold from tree branches. You pluck one, crack it open, and, surprise, it's bitter, sticky, and utterly unrecognizable as chocolate. That treat's still a few centuries and lots of stone grinding away. Even in these early villages, sacred geometry is everywhere. Homes aligned with celestial events. You notice how doorways face certain stars, how small mounds echo solar positions. The sky isn't just up, it's active, alive, talking. You wake to drums one morning, low and pulsing, like thunder trapped in a wooden box. The villagers are gathering around a central mound where a priest, face streaked with red pigment, raises his hands to the sky. It's a solstice, or maybe a harvest festival, or possibly both. The lines between sacred and daily life blur here like mist on the horizon. You kneel in the crowd, heart thudding. Smoke rises from a ceramic burner. The priest tosses in leaves and feathers, maybe some blood. The aroma stings your nose. Part incense, part burning hair, and all myth. Everyone watches the sun rise directly over a notched stone marker, its light splitting cleanly across the village plaza. It's not just beautiful, it's designed. These folks are calibrating architecture with astronomy before most people have figured out farming. And yet, this isn't some mystical utopia. There are tensions. Crops fail. Rival villages steal from each other. Your host family argues quietly one night about whether to move closer to a growing center. The son wants more prestige. The mother fears spirits displaced by expansion. As you pack your sleeping mat the next morning, you realize the forest isn't empty. It's full of ambition. Every root tangles with dreams of permanence. Cities will grow. Kings will rise. Gods will demand tribute. And you, dear traveler, are just getting started. Because just up the road, if you squint past the mist, you can make out El Mirador, a city that will one day house the largest pyramid in the entire Maya world. But we're not there quite yet. First, there's more corn to grind, more calendars to carve, and plenty of jaguar masks to try on. Better get moving before the jungle swallows you whole. You're up before dawn, shaking dew from your arms and brushing spiderwebs off your tunic, which is really just a scrap of woven cotton you traded for a handful of cacao beans. Welcome back to the jungle. The birds are going berserk in the canopy above, and something just rustled the underbrush behind you. Don't worry. Probably just a tap here. Probably. Ahead of you, a ghost of a staircase breaks through the trees. You step forward. What you're looking at isn't a hill, it's a pyramid. Well, technically, it's a temple atop a stepped platform. But let's not split hairs while your jaw is on the floor. You've arrived at El Mirador, and it is massive. We're talking thousands of people, dozens of plazas, hundreds of structures. some of them rivaling the biggest buildings in the ancient world. And this is still centuries before Tikal, or Chichen Itza, will make it into tourist brochures. This place is like a thunderclap in the mist. The low morning light catches the side of La Danta, the largest pyramid here, and one of the largest by volume anywhere on Earth. Let that sink in. It's bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza by mass. You probably won't survive climbing it in this heat. But hey, it's a good view before you pass out. La Danta rises 70 meters above the jungle floor, with multiple terraces that feel like stone ziggurats for the gods. You pass artisans hauling limestone blocks, their backs slick with sweat, ropes biting into their shoulders. They're not using wheels, no draft animals, just sheer determination, human coordination, and a spiritual conviction that the gods are watching. Mainstream fact: El Mirador reached its peak during the late Preclassic period, between 300 BCE and 150 CE. Its scale and complexity stunned archaeologists when it was rediscovered, buried under centuries of jungle, just sitting there, waiting for its moment. You climb the steps slowly, barefoot to grip the stone, and at the summit, winded, drenched, mosquito-bitten, you catch your first real look across the basin, green as far as the eye can see, and everywhere, tiny bumps beneath the foliage that you now recognize as temples, altars, platforms, cities waiting to be uncovered. But back to the one beneath your aching feet. El Mirador isn't just big, it's political. This is an early form of centralized rule, with kings likely claiming divine descent and priests managing massive rituals that glue the people together like tamale paste. You sit at the edge of a platform where elite scribes unroll bark paper books, codices, recording lineages, harvest cycles, and astronomical movements. And here's your quirky detail. Archaeologists found evidence that many temples, including La Danta, were covered in thick red paint. Blood red, to be exact. Imagine the whole city glowing crimson in the evening sun. Not exactly subtle, but it definitely says, hey, we're serious about our gods. And architecture. You descend into a quieter courtyard, less ceremonial, more domestic. You see pot-bellied statues, figures with thick limbs and rounded bellies, carved from limestone and plastered on the stuccoed walls. These aren't kings. They're maze gods, often shown in reclining poses, looking surprisingly cozy. It's a strange, endearing image. Divine contentment, belly out, smile faint, like a baby halfway through a nap. The Maya didn't just worship suffering, they worshipped abundance too. You spend time with a family of stoneworkers, and they explain the ritual of mixing powdered limestone with tree sap to make stucco. Every building here gleams white when finished, blinding under the tropical sun, like a city sculpted from moonlight. It's said that from a distance, with the right light, El Mirador would have shimmered like a mirage. A holy mirage you could live in, die for, and be buried beneath. But not everything is sacred. You catch whispers of power plays. One priest refuses to let another officiate a festival. The ruler's nephew disappears into the jungle after getting a little too popular. These are humans after all, not marble busts. There's gossip and maneuvering here, right alongside the incense and chants. Historians still argue whether El Mirador was governed by a centralized monarchy or something more priestly and theocratic. There's not enough written evidence to say for sure. But the urban planning, elevated causeways, strategic reservoirs, standardized architecture, hints at someone calling the shots. Speaking of reservoirs, you lean over a sunken pool, framed in stone and rimmed with algae. It's part of the city's rainwater catchment system. No rivers run through here, so everything depends on the skies and the cleverness of engineers. And those engineers, they're already adapting to climate swings. It's early, but the Maya are learning fast that success means mastering cycles of weather, of water, of time itself. You follow one of the causeways, Sakbiyab, they're called, white roads made of crushed limestone. This one stretches for kilometers, straight through the forest, connecting El Mirador to smaller satellite sites. Think of it as the ancient jungle freeway system, except it glows faintly under moonlight and is mostly quiet except for howler monkeys and the occasional jaguar. You stop at a roadside altar where a woman is leaving offerings, flowers, bits of shell, and the head of a chicken. She chants something under her breath, something rhythmic and beautiful, and then turns without acknowledging you. It's not rude, you're just not here. Back in the city, preparations are underway for a ceremony. You've noticed that everything in this world seems to build toward ritual. Temples are theaters, roads are pilgrimages, plazas are stages for gods to dance through the bodies of kings and queens. Tonight, the full moon will pass directly overhead, and that means the maize god must be thanked. You find a spot on the temple's lower terrace and wait as the sun dips. Fires are lit in stone braziers. Dancers appear, feet painted, masks tied tight, feathers like solar flares. Drums start slow, then flutes, then conch shells, and when the moon crests above the canopy, perfectly aligned with a temple notch, you feel it, that electricity of presence. The crowd goes silent. One of the dancers, wearing a jade-studded jaguar pelt, begins a slow spiral toward the center. He pulls a stingray spine from a pouch. A priest holds out a bowl. And yes, it's what you think. Blood is drawn from the tongue, from the earlobe. It's not chaotic, it's reverent. A gift, not a punishment. The blood falls like tears into the bowl, and the priest raises it to the heavens, his silhouette backlit by moonlight. You hold your breath. The ceremony ends in soft weeping and laughter. Offerings are burned. Children fall asleep on their parents' backs. Somewhere nearby, someone's playing a flute, alone. It's not a grand finale. It's just another night in a city that dreams in stone and bleeds for its gods. You lie down beneath a lintel carved with intertwined serpents and wonder what will become of this place. Will the jungle swallow it again? Will future generations remember? The firelight dances across your closed eyelids. You hear a voice reciting a calendar glyph. You feel time, thick and circular, wrapping itself around your ankles like jungle vines. Better rest. Tomorrow, you're heading to a new city, one built not just to honor the gods, but to speak with the stars. The air feels heavier as you step off the causeway, like it's trying to whisper something into your ear. There's no wind, just that thick, humming silence that only rainforests know how to make. Your breath slows. You've left behind El Mirador's grand stages and entered a deeper layer of Mayan thought, where time isn't just measured, it's revered. Welcome to the world of calendars, gods, and cosmic blood. You're somewhere near Isapa now, around 400 BCE, where early forms of the Mayan calendar and mythological storytelling begin to emerge in stone. But you're not really standing in a city. You're standing in a worldview, one where the universe has structure, time has texture, and every event is part of a cosmic drama, looping through eternity like the wheels of a giant celestial machine. Near the edge of the site, a stone stela looms in the clearing, carved with figures frozen in mid-action. You trace your fingers across a glyph-covered surface. It's not writing yet, not quite, but it's getting there. Proto-Maya script beginning to curl and evolve from older Olmec symbols. These are whispers of gods who walk between worlds, heroes who battle underworld monsters, and ancestors who mark the sky with their bones. Mainstream fact: the Maya developed one of the most accurate and complex calendar systems in the ancient world. The Tzolk'in, their 260-day ritual calendar, worked alongside the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar. Together, they formed the calendar round, a 52-year cycle that governed everything from corn planting to king crowning. Now you're in the thick of it, standing beside a fire pit where a priest sprinkles crushed cacao and ground copal resin into the flames. The smoke spirals upward, a kind of offering ladder for the gods. Everyone watches. This is no backyard bonfire. This is how time gets blessed. And it's how the gods are fed. Tonight, the priest isn't just conducting a ceremony. He's tuning the universe. He recites calendar dates like sacred chords. Each number, each day sign, each katun and baktun stacks onto the last like the gears of an invisible clockwork. You wonder how many of these gears are spinning right now. How many worlds are in motion, just outside your vision. Let's talk about those gods for a second. The Mayan pantheon isn't shy about drama. You've got Itzamna, the aged creator god with a wrinkled face and wise stare. There's Chak, god of rain, with a nose like a lightning bolt, and a temperament of someone who takes bad crop yields personally. And then there's Hunhunahpu, the maize god, who literally gets resurrected from his own bones so crops can grow. Very on brand. Here's your quirky tidbit of the night. The hero twins, Hunahpu and Exbalanca, star in one of the Maya's most important myths, the Popol Vuh. They descend into the underworld, outwit a bunch of skull-faced deathlords, and come back up victorious. But before that, one of them gets decapitated in a ball game. And then, his head replaces the ball. You now understand why no one takes that game lightly. If your ball can be someone's severed head, it's probably not just for fun. You stretch out beneath a starlit sky, and that's when you notice something eerie. The architecture, the pyramids, the stelae, the plazas, they're all aligned. To the sun, to the planets, even to the cycles of Venus. That's no accident. The Maya tracked Venus with near-perfect accuracy, noting every rise and fall, every shimmer in the pre-dawn sky. They believed Venus was a warbringer, Its movements signaled when to attack, when to sacrifice, when to stay home, and maybe hide under the bed. Historians still argue whether these astronomical alignments were planned during initial construction or modified as structures aged. Either way, it's clear Maya cities weren't just built, they were calibrated. Later, a young boy leads you to his family's calendar stone, buried halfway in dirt behind the garden. It's old, worn down, but he proudly explains the date on it. He knows which gods rule his birthday, which animals protect his soul, and how long he has until the next Wayeb, the 5 unlucky days at the end of the solar year, when the gods stop watching and anything can happen. Wayeb. Yeah, you'd really rather not be around for that. As night deepens, the jungle falls into a rhythm, a soft syncopation of insects and rustling trees, like nature tapping its fingers, along with the calendar. Everything here is cyclical. Death doesn't end things, it resets them. Crops die, rain returns, kings fall, lineages rise. You meet a group of astronomer priests, gathered at the top of a modest platform. They're pointing to the sky, murmuring names of constellations in Cholan, the ancestor of modern Maya languages. One marks a bark paper book with a charcoal stylus. Another murmurs the date, 13.00.00. You lean in. Wait, that's the date from 2012, isn't it? They say it's not the end, just the end of one Baktun, a 400-year cycle in the long count calendar. The world isn't ending, it's flipping the page, like finishing a book and starting the sequel. You exhale. Someone should have told the internet. Still, these numbers aren't casual. The Maya track time over thousands of years with chilling precision. They could predict eclipses centuries in advance. And while European astronomers were still arguing about geocentrism, the Maya had built full-fledged observatories, stone towers with slots that lined up perfectly with solstice sunrises and equinox shadows. You visit one. It's part temple, part telescope. A stone corridor aligns with the sun on the exact day of the equinox, sending light slicing down the length of the passage like a god's flashlight. Standing in that beam is equal parts science and magic. Your skin tingles, and you realize something else. This obsession with time, it's not just for farming and feasts. It's about control. The rulers and priesthood use calendars to legitimize everything they do. I was born on the day of the jaguar, a king might say. So obviously, I have divine authority to build this temple, and maybe sacrifice a rival or two. Even commoners memorize their day signs. It's not astrology the way we know it. It's more like a cosmic fingerprint, personal, sacred, permanent. You fall asleep, listening to a grandfather explain his Nahual, a spirit companion tied to his birth date. His is the bat. At first, you chuckle, but when he smiles and describes how he sees in the dark, flies between worlds, and dreams through sound, you stop laughing. You nod. You understand. And that's the core of it all, isn't it? For the Maya, time isn't a clock on the wall. It's a living being. It can be soothed. It can be angered. It moves like blood, slow and sacred. Tomorrow, you'll step into cities carved to mirror the sky, where temples pierce the heavens, kings dance in jaguar skins, and sacrifices shimmer like constellations on the stone. But tonight, you lie in a hammock strung between two ceiba trees, the sacred world tree of the Maya. The stars blink overhead like coded messages, and you drift off, trying to decode them. One last thought before sleep. You're not just passing through time, you're swimming in it. You wake to the crack of howler monkeys screaming bloody murder into the dawn, which, just so you know, is a normal rainforest greeting. The air is already syrup thick, clinging to your eyelashes, and your legs are sore from climbing pyramids that make modern staircases look like mild inclines. You rub the sleep out of your eyes, brush an ant off your arm, and blink at the horizon. You're not in a village anymore. You're standing in Tikal. This isn't just another Mayan city. It's one of the cities, a superpower, a titan, and it's humming with life, ambition, and the faint but constant scent of roasted cacao all around you. The forest gives way to broad plazas and temples so tall they split the canopy like stone daggers. One of them, Temple 4, is nearly 70 meters high, and yes, you're expected to climb it. Again, your thighs hate you. But look at that view. From the top, the jungle spreads out like an emerald ocean, and piercing through it are 5 colossal temple tops, poking above the trees like shark fins. You can almost hear them breathing. These are not ruins. Not yet. The city is alive. It's the 7th century CE. You're in the classic period now, the golden age of Maya civilization, and Tikal is booming. Tens of thousands of people live here, packed into neighborhoods that spiral out from the ceremonial core, like ribs around a spine. Mainstream fact. Tikal was one of the most influential and long-lasting Maya cities, peaking between the 6th and 9th centuries CE. It boasted towering temples, advanced water reservoirs, and sprawling marketplaces that thrived even in the middle of the rainforest. As you wander down a sakbe, one of those straight white causeways, you pass scribes hunched over folded bark paper books, merchants hawking chili pastes and obsidian blades, and children playing with miniature clay jaguars. The streets are buzzing with everything from gossip to prophecy. You turn a corner and stumble into a temazcal, a sweat bath. Inside, a young warrior is crouched in the steam, muscles tense, eyes closed. Beside him, an old woman chants softly while sprinkling herbs over heated stones. It smells like basil and wood smoke, and something slightly medicinal that probably came from a tree frog. You take a seat. The air inside is so hot, it makes your eyelashes sweat. But you stay, because this is more than a sauna. This is purification. Before battle, before ceremony, before entering sacred space, you sweat out the toxins of the world. You emerge cleansed, sort of, and wander into the central plaza, where 2 massive pyramids face each other like dueling gods. Temple 1, also called the Temple of the Great Jaguar, is a 9-level step pyramid with a tiny shrine perched at the top. It's the tomb of a ruler named Jasao Chan Ka Wilguan, who ruled during the 8th century CE. His carved bones were found inside. surrounded by jade, obsidian, and shell. He rests above the city he helped resurrect. Because, here's your twist, Tikal wasn't always on top. Remember the Kanul dynasty from the last section? Snake Kings? Yeah, them. They had their fangs deep in the Maya lowlands and knocked Tikal out of power for over a century. Tikal was a has-been, a city licking its wounds. But then came Jassaw. He kicked the Kayanul dynasty's tail feathers at the Battle of Bejukal and took back the throne with full cosmic flair. That's the thing about Maya cities. Their wars are narratives. Mythology in real time. Winning a battle wasn't just strategy. It was proof your gods were stronger. Quirky tidbit. Maya kings often wore elaborate headdresses taller than your torso. Some included quetzal feathers, jade discs, and even burning incense. Picture trying to maintain eye contact during a diplomatic meeting while your hat is literally on fire. Power move. You step into the royal court, just in time to witness one such spectacle. The king is seated on a jaguar skin throne, jade rings dangling from his ears, and a mask covering half his face. Courtiers in embroidered cotton whisper back and forth, balancing politics, prophecy, and who's going to bring the best tamales to the next festival. One thing you notice, it's not just men. Women hold powerful roles. Noble women own land, command troops, and even rule outright in some cases. You'll meet one later. For now, just know the Maya didn't always follow the patriarchy playbook. Historians still argue whether Tikal's dynasty line was purely hereditary or if religious approval was more crucial. Some kings trace their descent from gods, others from prestigious ancestors. But either way, the rulers here wrap themselves in enough myth to make Marvel jealous. By midday, the plaza is packed. The people have gathered for a public ritual. A priest with jet black hair and obsidian tattoos climbs the temple steps, scattering flower petals behind him. The crowd hushes. Drums begin. The air changes. Smoke curls upward in slow tendrils as he raises his arms to the sky, chanting in Cholan. Below, a dancer dressed as a skeletal god begins to move. Jerky at first, then smoother, then utterly mesmerizing. The performance tells a story. The maze god dies, descends to the underworld, and returns reborn. Every gesture, every beat, every flick of the wrist is calibrated to match the rhythms of the cosmos. You realize you're watching theater, religion, history, and political messaging all at once. And it works. You're spellbound. Later, as the crowd disperses, you follow a small group of architects walking toward the edge of the city. They're designing a new temple platform, and they're arguing, gently, about the placement of the shadow lines during solstice. You lean in. Turns out, 1 degree off, and the god's metaphorical eye won't align with the plaza. It has to be perfect. You step back and look around. The layout of Tikal isn't random. It's cosmogrammed. Temples represent mountains. Plazas are lakes. Ball courts are portals. This isn't just city planning. It's cosmology in limestone. At sunset, you find yourself on top of Temple 2, watching the golden light wash over a city carved with both power and patience. Below you, torches flicker on. Music starts again, flutes this time, soft and high-pitched. The city doesn't sleep, it just shifts. In the dark, someone hands you a drink. It's thick, foamy, and bitter. Cacao, Maya style. No sugar, no milk. Just roasted beans, chili, and the taste of empire. You sip slowly, and your brain lights up. You're tasting ceremony, wealth, war, trade routes, marriage alliances. Cacao beans are currency here. Literal money. People are drinking their riches. And in this moment, with the stars beginning to blink awake, you start to understand how everything here interlocks. The gods shape the kings. The kings shape the cities. The cities shape the cosmos. And you're just a traveler passing through. Tomorrow, you'll follow the rise of a new force, one that slithers across the lowlands, wrapping cities in diplomacy and fear. But tonight, you rest beneath a sky so dense with stars. It looks like it's been embroidered by hand. So, you're a Mayan priest now. It happened subtly. One day, you were a boy, watching the firelight dance on the walls of a temple, marveling at the glyphs and the jaguar skin robes of the elite. The next, you're clutching a conch shell trumpet and whispering prayers in the limestone chambers of a sacred pyramid, barefoot, veiled in incense, trying not to trip on your own robe. It's not a bad gig, really. You get the best food, honey cakes, maize gruel with chili, even roasted peccary now and then. You sleep near the temple, away from the hustle of the farmers and merchants. Most days are a calm mix of rituals, astrological calculations, and advising the Ahau, your city's ruler, on divine matters, like when to go to war or when to plant maize. But tonight, you've been summoned to the high temple of Itzamna. The stars are aligning, literally. A Venus transit, sacred and ominous, has begun. And in your society, the stars are more than decorations in the sky. They're calendars, clocks, signs from the gods. You emerge from the narrow stone stairwell of the temple, the smoke of copal incense curling around your face like spectral vines. The plaza below glows golden with torchlight. Murmurs rise from the crowd, and you catch snatches of prayer, superstition, and that one vendor still trying to sell tamales. It's a holy night. In your hands, a codex, folded bark paper coated in lime plaster, filled with glyphs and astonishingly accurate astronomical data. It's part prophecy, part almanac, and part flex. You glance at it again. Venus is the morning star tonight. That means war is a favorable outcome. But planting is not. You'll have to deliver this news to the king with your best neutral face, because he's been itching to invade a neighboring city-state. And now, he'll take this as a green light. Sigh. So much for peace. The Mayan calendar system is, well, let's say it makes modern planners look like crayon doodles. You've got the Tzolk'in, 260 days of sacred cycles, and the Hab, a 365-day civil calendar. They're like gears that click together, turning history into patterns. Every 52 years, they realign. People throw massive feasts to keep the universe from collapsing. No pressure, but there's more. You also track the long count, which stretches back to 3114 BCE, an exact date etched in stone across temples, recording the birth of this world. That's right, Mayan time isn't just circular, it's stacked like a divine layer cake. Every date is a barcode of spiritual meaning, and it's your job to read the code, day after day, in a world where even choosing the wrong wedding date might mean divine punishment, crop failure, or your mother-in-law finally moving in. You check your sundial. Okay, it's actually a shadow cast by a notched stone. But same idea. Time for the midnight rite. 4 of you, each robed to represent a cardinal direction, ascend to the roof platform of the temple. North is white, south is yellow, east is red, and west is black. You're red tonight, representing the rising sun. Appropriate, since you haven't slept. Each of you carries an offering: obsidian blades, a quetzal feather, a shell of liquid copal, and a figurine carved of jade. You chant, you burn, you cut your own earlobe. Yes, really, pain feeds prayer, supposedly, and drip blood onto bark paper. It curls as it burns. The smoke snakes up into the heavens. Mainstream historical fact: the Maya created some of the most accurate pre-telescopic astronomical records in the world. Their observatories were marvels, aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and the risings of celestial bodies. The pyramid at Chichen Itza even casts a snake-like shadow down its steps during the equinox. Your civilization sees the stars not just as decorative, but directive. Quirky detail? Mayan priests sometimes wore long paper streamers soaked in blood from ritual cuts on their tongues or genitals. Yes, your morning started with a cup of cacao and ended with a bloody streamer trailing from your tongue like a gruesome party favor. You're not complaining, just noting the job description's fine print. Tonight's ritual goes smoothly, all things considered. The crowd down below starts to thin out. Some people will stay and sleep against the temple steps, as if proximity to holiness might soak into their dreams. A few young men beat slow rhythms on turtle shell drums. You envy them. No self-mutilation required. The next morning, after a weak cup of atole and some sticky squash paste, you begin interpreting glyphs for the royal scribes. This is your other job, chronicling time itself. You're updating the record stones. They're carved by artisans, yes, but you dictate the events. When a battle happened, who was sacrificed? Which god received what? And when the world might end again, historians still argue whether the Maya truly predicted the apocalypse in 2012. The truth? That end date was just the end of a Baktun cycle in the long count, like your great-great-grandfather's old calendar, flipping to a new page. Nothing more. But hey, it did cause quite the stir, even among people who can't pronounce Popol Vuh. Your ruler visits the temple later that day. He's painted head to toe in blue, the ceremonial color of sacrifice. Don't worry, he's not the one being offered. He's just fresh from a ritual bath and feeling inspired. You bow deeply. He asks if Venus favors the war plans. You tell him yes, though the omens are murky. He nods. You both know he's already made up his mind. Later that afternoon, you meet with another priest to recalibrate the calendar stones for a minor city to the west. They've requested an updated Hob chart to correct their planting cycles. You don't travel there. You simply send a message inscribed on bark, sealed with wax and a cacao bean. It'll arrive in a week. That's fast, by jungle standards. You stroll past the sacred cenote after your duties. Still bleeding slightly from your earlobe, you peer into the dark water. Bones shimmer below the surface. Many sacrifices have gone down this well. Young girls, warriors, even jade figurines. Water is life here, but it's also a doorway to the gods. You drop a sprig of copal in as an offering and whisper a quick prayer. Nothing dramatic happens, just a ripple. Still, you feel lighter. The life of a priest is strange, sacred, and stressful. You're half astronomer, half doctor, part poet, part bloodletter. You maintain balance between humans and gods. You're a bridge. Sometimes you feel like a ladder instead. People climb over you to reach the heavens. But tonight, as the stars begin to bloom overhead and the howler monkeys quiet down, you lie on the temple roof and breathe. The world doesn't feel chaotic. It clicks and ticks like a vast celestial mechanism. And you? You're one of the cogs, turning quietly in place, helping time itself roll forward. You wake up to the sound of chanting, rhythmic, deep, and pulsing like the heartbeat of the jungle. It's still dark, but the village is already stirring. You don't know it yet, but today's the day you'll meet the true backbone of Mayan society. Not the kings, not the priests, not the warriors, but the farmers, the weavers, the stonemasons, the ones who hold the whole fragile, glorious thing together with calloused hands and sunburned backs. You're handed a bundle of tools before you've even rubbed the sleep from your eyes. Obsidian blades, a worn digging stick, a tiny woven pouch of maize seeds. A skinny boy named Balaam grins at you and slaps you on the back. "You're coming with me," he says. You hope it's not a punishment. It's not. It's work. And work, here, is everything. The first rays of dawn slide over the thatched rooftops as you trek down winding trails toward the milpa, the family plot carved from the forest itself. There's no plow, no draft animals, no industrial shortcut. Just grit, sweat, tradition. Balaam explains it all, between wiping his forehead and swatting flies. They don't farm year-round. The land rotates. Slash and burn, they call it. You clear the forest with fire. Plant your maize, beans, and squash for a few years. Then leave the land to rest. The ashes feed the soil feeds the people. It's older than the calendar, and it works, most of the time. But this year, the rains are late. Again, Balaam doesn't talk about it, but his silence says plenty. There's tension in the way he checks the sky, a nervousness in how deep he plants the seeds, as though begging them to grow. The gods are listening, sure, but lately they seem to have their ears plugged. You work side by side in the heat, till your arms ache and your tunic clings to your back. It's exhausting, repetitive, brutally honest labor. But Balaam's little sister shows up at midday with tortillas still warm from the comal. And for a moment, the world softens. You begin to realize something. These people don't farm because it's romantic. They farm because it's life. And when your survival depends on the rain, your soul gets tied to the sky. You head back through the smoky trails in the afternoon, past other families bent in their own patches of earth. You pass a woman weaving on a backstrap loom outside her home, her fingers dancing through threads dyed with cochineal red and indigo. She's creating something intricate and vibrant. Clothes, maybe, or a ritual sash. Weaving, it turns out, is a language. Each pattern speaks of lineage, village, gods. It's storytelling with warp and weft. In the central plaza, a mason taps away at a temple wall, chiseling glyphs with surgical precision. He barely glances at you. His mind is 1,000 years deep. Every line he carves has meaning. Dates, names, prophecies. The stone, like the weavings, holds memory. These artisans, they're elite in their own right. Not royalty, no, but respected. Apprenticed from youth, bound to guilds, and occasionally even gifted land by the king. That mural you saw back in Section 4? Yeah, a commoner painted that. Probably while muttering about overdue corn rations and sore wrists. By twilight, the village smells like wood smoke, roasting maize, and wet earth. You're invited into Balaam's home, a modest one-room hut with packed dirt floors and reed mats. But there's laughter, warm food, and music. Someone strums a turtle shell. Someone else sings a slow tune about a jaguar who loses his spots. You chuckle. It's nonsense, but it's also perfect. As you watch Balaam's mother crush maize on a mitat, you think about how the gods didn't just eat maize, they made you out of it. That's what the Popol Vuh says, anyway. People of corn, crafted from dough when wood and mud failed. You're literally snack material, which explains a lot. But here's something strange. Historians still argue whether Mayan commoners truly live in peace with the elite, or if this whole thing was a powder keg waiting to blow. Sure, you've seen smiling faces, shared meals, but there's also whispered complaints, talk of tribute that keeps increasing, of droughts that grow longer, of kings who ask for more blood and give less in return. The evening winds carry that tension. It clings to the clothes, drying on lines. It creaks in the beams of homes, stretched thin by hungry bellies. You suddenly realize this society works, but just barely. Held together not by grandeur, but by the quiet dignity of farmers, weavers, and stone carvers who rise before dawn and keep the stars spinning. One seed, one stitch, one glyph at a time. Still, it's not all sweat and gloom. Did you know some Mayan towns had public saunas? That's right, communal sweat baths, built from stone and heated with wood fires, where laborers could soak their tired limbs and chat about the ball game or the local shaman's bad breath. It's not luxury, but it's something. And the food, it's better than you expected. Beans and squash, roasted turkey, chili chocolate drinks so spicy they make your ears sweat. You're handed a tamale wrapped in banana leaf, and it tastes like contentment wrapped in effort. As the stars begin to shimmer above the thatched roofs, you lie back on a woven mat, your muscles humming with fatigue, and your thoughts buzzing with quiet awe. These people aren't just living, they're enduring, building a world that's as beautiful as it is breakable. The gods may live on pyramids, but real power, it's kneeling in the dirt, planting maize under a fickle sky. You wake up to the sound of chanting, rhythmic, deep, and pulsing like the heartbeat of the jungle. It's still dark, but the village is already stirring. You don't know it yet, but today's the day you'll meet the true backbone of Mayan society. Not the kings, not the priests, not the warriors, but the farmers, the weavers, the stonemasons, the ones who hold the whole fragile, glorious thing together with calloused hands and sunburned backs. You're handed a bundle of tools before you've even rubbed the sleep from your eyes. Obsidian blades, a worn digging stick, a tiny woven pouch of maize seeds. A skinny boy named Balaam grins at you and slaps you on the back. "You're coming with me," he says. You hope it's not a punishment. It's not. It's work. And work here is everything. The first rays of dawn slide over the thatched rooftops as you trek down winding trails toward the milpa, the family plot carved from the forest itself. There's no plow, no draft animals, no industrial shortcut, just grit, sweat, tradition. Balaam explains it all, between wiping his forehead and swatting flies. They don't farm year-round. The land rotates. Slash and burn, they call it. You clear the forest with fire, plant your maize, beans, and squash for a few years, then leave the land to rest. The ashes feed the soil feeds the people. It's older than the calendar, and it works most of the time. But this year, the rains are late again. Balaam doesn't talk about it, but his silence says plenty. There's tension in the way he checks the sky, a nervousness in how deep he plants the seeds, as though begging them to grow. The gods are listening, sure, but lately they seem to have their ears plugged. You work side by side in the heat till your arms ache and your tunic clings to your back. It's exhausting, repetitive, brutally honest labor. But Balaam's little sister shows up at midday with tortillas still warm from the comal. And for a moment, the world softens. You begin to realize something. These people don't farm because it's romantic. They farm because it's life. And when your survival depends on the rain, your soul gets tied to the sky. You head back through the smoky trails in the afternoon, past other families bent in their own patches of earth. You pass a woman weaving on a backstrap loom outside her home, her fingers dancing through threads dyed with cochineal red and indigo. She's creating something intricate and vibrant. Clothes, maybe, or a ritual sash. Weaving, it turns out, is a language. Each pattern speaks of lineage, village, gods. It's storytelling with warp and weft. In the central plaza, a mason taps away at a temple wall, chiseling glyphs with surgical precision. He barely glances at you. His mind is 1,000 years deep. Every line he carves has meaning. Dates, names, prophecies. The stone, like the weavings, holds memory. These artisans, they're elite in their own right. Not royalty, no, but respected. Apprenticed from youth, bound to guilds, and occasionally even gifted land by the king. That mural you saw back in Section 4? Yeah, a commoner painted that. Probably while muttering about overdue corn rations and sore wrists. By twilight, the village smells like wood smoke, roasting maize, and wet earth. You're invited into Balaam's home, a modest one-room hut with packed dirt floors and reed mats. But there's laughter, warm food, and music. Someone strums a turtle shell. Someone else sings a slow tune about a jaguar who loses his spots. You chuckle. It's nonsense, but it's also perfect. As you watch Balaam's mother crush maize on a metate, you think about how the gods didn't just eat maize, they made you out of it. That's what the Popol Vuh says, anyway. People of corn, crafted from dough when wood and mud failed. You're literally snack material, which explains a lot. But here's something strange. Historians still argue whether Mayan commoners truly lived in peace with the elite, or if this whole thing was a powder keg waiting to blow. Sure, you've seen smiling faces, shared meals, but there's also whispered complaints. Talk of tribute that keeps increasing, of droughts that grow longer, of kings who ask for more blood and give less in return. The evening winds carry that tension. It clings to the clothes, drying on lines. It creaks in the beams of homes stretched thin by hungry bellies. You suddenly realize this society works, but just barely, held together not by grandeur, but by the quiet dignity of farmers, weavers, and stone carvers who rise before dawn and keep the stars spinning, one seed, one stitch, one glyph at a time. Still, it's not all sweat and gloom. Did you know some Mayan towns had public saunas? That's right, communal sweat baths, built from stone and heated with wood fires, where laborers could soak their tired limbs and chat about the ball game or the local shaman's bad breath. It's not luxury, but it's something. And the food? It's better than you expected. Beans and squash, roasted turkey, chili chocolate drinks, so spicy they make your ears sweat. You're handed a tamale wrapped in banana leaf, and it tastes like contentment wrapped in effort. As the stars begin to shimmer above the thatched roofs, you lie back on a woven mat, your muscles humming with fatigue, and your thoughts buzzing with quiet awe. These people aren't just living, they're enduring, building a world that's as beautiful as it is breakable. The gods may live on pyramids, but real power, it's kneeling in the dirt, planting maize under a fickle sky. You, a humble time traveler, are about to get spiritually wrecked. You wake up with dried maize stuck to your cheek and the soft cooing of jungle birds teasing your eardrums. You're still in the same woven hammock you crashed in the night before, but the energy in the village feels different today. Thicker, heavier, charged. Something's coming. You can feel it in the soles of your dusty feet. The air smells faintly of copal incense and something sharper, spicier, like the jungle itself is brewing a secret. A young woman with brilliant jade beads in her hair pulls aside your reed mat. Her eyes are wide, but calm. The shaman is waiting, she says simply. And that's that. No breakfast, no explanation, just destiny, apparently. You're ushered out past rows of houses, whose smoke is rising straight into a cloudless blue sky. Every few steps, someone touches your shoulder, mutters a prayer, or smears a bit of white chalk on your brow. The elders are sitting cross-legged in front of a small thatched shrine, heads bowed in unison. Even the children are unusually silent. And then you see him, the Ajikage, the daykeeper, steps out of the shadows. His hair is knotted and crusted with dried herbs. His cloak is dyed in deep reds, browns, and greens, colors of earth, blood, and rebirth. His face is smeared with ash, and his eyes, black as obsidian, rimmed with cowl blue. You don't know how old he is, but it feels like he's been here since the world cracked open. He grins, revealing surprisingly white teeth. "You've never walked the rope between worlds, have you?" he asks. You shake your head. "Definitely not." "Well then," he says, "let's fix that. You are not prepared." First comes the fasting. A full day with nothing but water and a single bitter drink made from cacao and crushed chili peppers. You're dizzy before anything truly begins. Then you're led into a low, dome-shaped sweat bath. A temazcal, heated with hot stones and steaming herbs. Sweat pours from you. Every breath feels like boiling cinnamon. The shaman chants the names of gods, stars, ancestors. You chant them too, because frankly, there's no oxygen left to argue. By the time you stumble out, half naked and half conscious, the jungle is breathing in colors. And then he hands you the toad. Yup, a living, pulsating, very poisonous toad. The Bufo alvarius, if you're feeling scientific. Mayans called it the Kuhul chancho, the sacred sky toad. And its skin? It contains a hallucinogenic compound known today as 5-MeO-DMT. The shaman doesn't need to explain. You just know this toad has shown more people the spirit world than all the temples put together. But toads aren't the only root. He also has morning glory seeds, bark from the balche tree, fermented honey infused with psychedelic mushrooms, and something dark and sticky that tastes like burnt jungle and regret. Once it kicks in, you stop being you. You're weightless, floating above the canopy, over the temples, over the mountains. You can see the entire calendar unfolding like a giant stone clock beneath you. The world is a web, glowing lines connecting people, stars, animals, memories. The gods are real, and they are watching. You see Itzamna scribbling glyphs in the sky. You see Chak, the rain god, slicing clouds with his obsidian axe. The maize god dances across golden fields. And in the center of it all, a spinning wheel of time. Zolkin, Hab, long count, 365, 260, 5,125 years. The shaman calls it the divine machine. You're a speck inside it. Down below, the daykeeper is reading bones, shells, and jade pieces like they're lines of poetry. He lays out the sacred calendar, assigns numbers and gods to each. He mutters dates that haven't come yet, names that haven't been born yet. One of them sounds like yours. When you come back to your body, the sky is dark, but full of stars. Your hands are trembling. Your tongue is coated with bitter slime. The shaman is smiling again. He says, "You've seen more than most kings." You nod, because that much is true. But here's the thing. Divination isn't just a drug trip. It's science. Sort of. The Maya were master timekeepers, astronomers, and astrologers. Their calendar system, based on intricate celestial cycles, was used to determine the best days to plant, to marry, to go to war, to sacrifice. Everything was woven into time. They believed the cosmos had a heartbeat. And if you knew how to listen, you could sink your life to it. Sometimes, that meant simply consulting a daykeeper or a codex. Other times, you ate the mushroom and talked to the jaguar spirit yourself. And now for a quirky detail. Some Maya believed in talking idols, statues of gods that spoke during trance rituals. These conversations were probably the result of hallucinogens and a skilled shaman acting as a ventriloquist. You think back and swear you saw a howler monkey statue wink at you. Could have been real. Could have been the mushrooms. There's still debate among scholars about how widespread these substances were. Some argue that only priests and shamans used entheogens in tightly controlled ceremonies. Others think these substances were more common, even used recreationally during festivals. Some even suggest early forms of ritual bloodletting might have been enhanced by altered states, a mix of physical pain, music, and jungle chemistry, pushing the soul into the other world. By the time you stagger back to your hammock, your perspective on life, time, and amphibians has shifted permanently. You lie there, heart thumping like a ceremonial drum, and think, maybe the Maya didn't just want to know the future. Maybe they wanted to feel it, taste it, merge with it. And somehow, for just a moment, you did. Tonight, you walk in jade and power. You wake to the soft flutter of a Quetzal feather fan, brushing air as cool as spring water across your cheek. Gone is the village hammock. Gone is the jungle's damp breath. You're in a palace now, a real one. Stone walls shimmer with polished red stucco. Glyphs line every beam and column. And incense smoke rises like curling snakes into the sunlight above. You blink. Your skin is dusted with mica. Your wrists jingle with jade. Somewhere in the distance, the sounds of flutes and grinding maize hum in harmony. You are not a peasant today. Today, you're close to power. And her name is Sakuk. Welcome to Palanque. Not just any Maya city, but a glittering jewel carved into the Chiapas highlands. It's 600 CE, and the city is alive. Temples rise like pyramids out of the misty forest. Engineers are directing aqueducts with laser-sharp geometry. And deep within the palace walls, a queen is preparing to rewrite the rules of kingship. You first see her in silhouette. Noble profile, straight shoulders, hair woven into a towering headdress, shaped like the world tree. No one bows, not because she lacks authority, but because her presence demands awe, not submission. She turns, and suddenly, the weight of the dynasty seems to rest entirely on her narrow shoulders. Let's rewind a moment. Sakuk wasn't meant to rule. The Maya were deeply patriarchal in official titles. Men were kings, warriors, scribes. Women, queens, yes, but often ceremonial, secondary. Yet when Palanque's ruler dies, without a clear male heir, it's Sakuk who takes the throne. The court gasps. A woman, a queen regnant, but Sakuk is no ornament. She has royal blood and the intellect to match. Her lineage runs deep into the dynastic marrow of Palanque. She's not here to smile beside a king. She is the king until her son is ready. And what a son he will be. You are now part of her retinue. Low ranking, sure, but you carry her scrolls, observe her rituals, record her visions. You're there when she presides over court assemblies beneath vast stone lintels. You hear her voice echo between glyph-painted columns, steady and decisive. She reads the calendar as if it's etched into her palms. She speaks of Katun cycles and omens from the stars. Priests nod, nobles remain silent. No one dares question her authority. She may not go to war with a spear, but her words are weapons, and she wields them like obsidian blades. One day, you're summoned to the Temple of the Inscriptions, still under construction. Workers chant while carving glyphs with tiny flint chisels. Sakhuk walks beside you, holding her son's hand. A skinny boy with a huge name, Kainich Janab, Pakal. She places his palm on the foundation stone. This, she says, is where you begin. Pakal nods solemnly. He's only 12, but his eyes are ancient. When he finally takes the throne at age 12, Sakhuk doesn't disappear. She continues as regent for years, advising him, guiding his court, keeping the dynasty breathing until he's strong enough to hold the weight himself. She never claims credit, but everyone knows. Without her, there is no Pakal the Great. Pakal will become one of the most powerful kings in Maya history, building towering temples, commissioning astronomical records, even constructing the famous sarcophagus that lies beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions, carved in a stone box so elaborate that future conspiracy theorists will claim he was an alien. But none of it happens without the woman who made his rule possible. Sakhuk isn't just a placeholder. She's a symbol of dynastic rebirth. And here's your quirky detail. The Maya calendar played a huge role in justifying her rule. According to glyph inscriptions, her reign coincided with a highly significant calendar cycle. This wasn't random, it was divine. The return of certain gods, the completion of prophecy, the moment when a woman, if descended from the right bloodline, had to take the throne. So, Sakhuk did. She didn't just inherit power, she embodied the gods' timing. Her authority wasn't a loophole, it was fate. Modern scholars still debate how much real political control Maya queens held. Some argue that figures like Sakhuk were exceptions, products of necessity, not true agency. Others point to evidence in inscriptions and court records that suggest a more nuanced view, that women, especially elite women, held real sway in royal and ritual life. Some queens even acted as war leaders. Some had their own tombs, richly adorned as evidence of personal power, not just the extension of a husband or son. But Sakhuk, she's not just an exception, she's a blueprint. As the sun sets, you watch her from the shadows of the palace. She stands on a high platform, arms lifted toward Venus, offering crushed flowers and blood to the gods. Her voice rises in a chant older than language. The people watch. They see not a woman, but a sovereign, a living link between gods and humans, between yesterday and tomorrow, between a crumbling dynasty and one reborn. And you, once just an observer, now understand. Some rulers build empires with armies, others with time, vision, and the sheer force of will. Sakhuk, she built one with all three. Tonight, the jungle grows quiet, as the cities fall silent. You wake up to the smell of something burning. Not firewood, not incense, but something acrid and unsettling. Ash and old limestone. The air tastes wrong. You sit up in your hammock, straining your ears for the usual dawn sounds. Howler monkeys, market chatter, laughter, flutes, nothing. Only the slow, steady creak of a jungle reclaiming its prize. You're still in a Maya city, but not the Palanque of Sakuk, not the Copan of kings, not Tikal in its shining glory. No, this place has changed. The temples are still here, but they're crumbling. Trees burst from stairways like claws. Roof combs lean like tired bones. Even the stelae, the carved stones that once boasted of kings and victories, are cracked, abandoned, moss-eaten. You are living in the end times of a world that once glittered. It's the 9th century CE, and across the Maya lowlands, cities are collapsing, one after another, like candles blown out by a long, invisible wind. Caracol, Dos Pilas, Calakmul, Bonampak, gone, not overnight, not in flames, but in silence. People simply leave. Fields go fallow. Temples stop being maintained. The ball courts grow weeds. Kings stop being mentioned in stone. For centuries, these cities were engines of art, warfare, science, and religion. They watched the stars, tracked eclipses, predicted the calendar turns down to the day. They built libraries in stone. They created dynasties that lasted for generations. And now, even the gods are whispering their goodbyes. You live among the final generations, trying to hold it together. You're a scribe's apprentice in a once glorious town, now half deserted. Your hands know the feel of bark paper, the texture of crushed cochineal ink. But your master, once a court artist, is now carving funeral glyphs for families that will never return. The last monument you help engrave doesn't record a king's victory. It records nothing. A blank date, as if time itself paused. The people are afraid. They whisper about the skies, the rains, the stars. Something is wrong. So what actually happened? Let's take a breath and step out of the story for a second. This moment, the so-called classic Maya collapse, is one of the most hotly debated topics in archaeology. Not because we don't have data, but because we have so much of it. And it's like trying to piece together a mural after a hurricane. What we do know, from roughly 750 to 900 CE, dozens of major Maya cities in the southern lowlands experienced political and demographic collapse. Monument production plummeted. Long-distance trade broke down. Urban centers emptied out. Dynasties disappeared. It wasn't a single war. It wasn't a plague. It wasn't one bad king. It was everything. Here's the mainstream theory. Collapse by complexity. The classic Maya civilization became too successful. Cities competed endlessly in warfare, building bigger palaces, pushing more tribute out of their neighbors, demanding more food, more manpower, more sacrifice. The rulers, obsessed with divine kingship, kept promising cosmic order, while the real world slipped into chaos. Then the droughts came. Multiple climate studies showed that the 9th century saw a series of intense, prolonged droughts. Crops failed, reservoirs dried, the forest canopy shifted, starvation spread. The great cities, reliant on elite-managed irrigation and trade, began to break. As central authority crumbled, people left. Some migrated north. Some returned to small villages. Some just vanished into the jungle. It wasn't the end of the Maya people, but it was the end of the world they had built. And now, your quirky detail. Archaeologists working in some late classic cities discovered massive, hastily constructed walls inside royal compounds, like someone tried to fortress the palace in a panic. These were not well-planned fortifications. They were rushed, sloppy, defensive. It's like watching a dynasty try to sandbag its way through a tidal wave. Kings had ruled for centuries, with control over time, stars, and agriculture. But none of that stopped the rain from failing. And when belief falters, so does power. You sit beside your scribe master as he lights what may be his final offering to the gods. There are no more grand public ceremonies, no more royal court, just flickering candles, a piece of jaguar bone, and a prayer spoken in a voice that cracks. We kept the days, but the days stopped coming. You want to ask what he means, but the jungle answers first, with the groan of stone cracking under root. And here's the scholarly debate. Was this really a collapse or just a transformation? The term collapse implies everything ended, but the Maya never disappeared. Maya people still lived, spoke their languages, farmed their lands. Cities in the northern Yucatan, like Uxmal and Chichen Itza, actually flourished after the collapse of the southern lowlands. Was it really an apocalypse? Or just a shift in the political model? Maybe we've romanticized the cities too much. Maybe we've misunderstood what decline meant to the people still living there. Or maybe the people who walked away from the ruins were the wisest of all. In the end, it's not fire or swords that finish the classic Maya cities. It's a slow, smoky unraveling. Power loses its grip. Gods go unanswered. The scribes stop carving, and the jungle exhales. By nightfall, you're gone from the city, following a trail of others down a forest path, lit by fireflies and memory. Behind you, the temples fade into darkness. Ahead lies something new, not a kingdom, not a collapse, a continuation, even in the silence. The Maya heart still beats. You just have to listen carefully. Tonight, the gods shift north, and so do you. You're standing under a sky so full of stars, it doesn't look real. It's like someone spilled crushed jade and pearl across a black velvet mat. The jungle is gone, at least the thick, wet green tangle of the south. Here, in the Puc Hills of the northern Yucatan, the land rolls and breathes like sleeping giants beneath your feet. And scattered across these hills, cities rise again. Uxmal, Kabah, Sayil, Labna. You rub the sleep from your eyes, not quite believing what you see. After the collapse of the great southern cities, you expected silence, ruins, ghosts, Instead, you're staring at new cities, ones where the gods still smile from every facade, and the stonework is more precise, more daring, more beautiful than ever. You have arrived in the Maya Renaissance. It's the late Classic, interterminal Classic period, roughly 801,000 CE. And while much of the southern lowlands have gone quiet, the northern Maya world is singing louder than ever. Here in the Puc region, near modern-day Campeche and Yucatan, things are different. The rains are more reliable. The land is hillier, dotted with natural depressions called dolinas that help trap water. And, critically, people here adapt. They build choltuns, underground cisterns, bottle-shaped reservoirs carved into the bedrock, sealed with plaster to catch every precious drop of rain. It's hydrological brilliance without rivers. You walk into Uxmal, maybe the most dazzling of them all, and your jaw hits the limestone. Everything here is designed to impress. Pyramids with steep, rounded sides like no other. Facades that explode with masks of the rain god Chak. Hundreds of them, all stacked in rows like stone rainfall. Palaces so symmetrical, you'd think they were drafted by gods with geometry sets. And in the center of it all, the Pyramid of the Magician, curving upward like a massive egg hatched from myth. This isn't a rebirth, it's a reimagining. You find work as a stonecutter's apprentice, learning to chisel the square snout of Chak with unsteady hands. The rain god rules everything here, his image carved into lintels, corners, doorways. Not just one version either. Sometimes he's wide-eyed, sometimes fanged, sometimes he even looks a bit drunk. And here's your quirky fact of the day. Some of the decorative mosaics on Puc buildings were so complex. Each block was carved individually and numbered on the back, so masons would know exactly where to place them, like a giant 3D puzzle made of sacred math. But beauty hides pressure. Behind the glittering stonework, the Puc cities face their own dangers. The growing population means more mouths to feed, more crops to water. And while the Chultans work for now, climate doesn't stay cooperative forever. Still, the people build and build palaces, causeways, terraces, ceremonial platforms. You can almost feel the optimism. These aren't defensive citadels like the cities down south. These are showpieces, civic masterpieces. It's a civilization reinventing itself. But a shadow looms on the horizon. It comes with merchants at first, dressed differently, speaking in a clipped dialect, carrying turquoise, obsidian, even gold. They say they're from the far west, from the central Mexican highlands. They bring something else too, feathers, bright green ones, quetzal feathers, and stories, big ones, about a feathered god who sails the sky and rules with wisdom, not blood. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Sometime around the 10th century CE, the Maya world begins to see influences from central Mexico, particularly from the powerful city of Tollan, known to us as Tula, home of the Toltecs. This is a hotly debated moment in Mesoamerican history. Why? because evidence at sites like Uxmal, Chichen Itza, and others suggest a fusion of styles, architecture, iconography, even weapons that look distinctly non-Maya. You start seeing serpent columns, Atlantean figures holding up roofs, images of sacrifice by heart extraction, a ritual far more prominent in central Mexico than in the Maya lowlands. Did the Toltecs invade? Did they migrate? Or did the Maya simply borrow their style? You walk the roads between cities now. Sakbyab, sacred white roads made of crushed limestone that glow under the moonlight. These roads stretch for kilometers, straight as arrows, linking Puk cities into a network of shared ambition. You pass traders, priests, diplomats, and slowly you start to hear a new name whispered. Kukulkan, not just Chak anymore. Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, bringer of rain and knowledge. A god with roots that reach far beyond Maya soil. You're present when the first emissary from Chichen Itza arrives in Uxmal. He wears a headdress taller than you are, shaped like a plumed snake in mid-flight. His voice carries like thunder, and he speaks not of kings, but of orders, brotherhoods, shared visions. He speaks of Kukulkan as both deity and ruler, as both man and myth. And the elders listen because things are changing again. Here's the scholarly debate. How much influence did the Toltecs really have on the northern Maya? Some archaeologists argue for a military conquest, pointing to the sudden appearance of foreign weaponry and heart sacrifice imagery. Others think it was a religious or mercantile alliance, with elite Maya rulers adopting foreign styles to boost their legitimacy. Still others think the whole Toltec narrative might be part myth, exaggerated by later Maya chroniclers to connect their cities to divine, ancient origins. It's possible that Kukulkan was a Maya invention inspired by distant myths, not imported wholesale. History, like stonework, can be decorative and functional. So here you are, living among golden palaces and serpent gods, surrounded by echoes of a new order. You watch dancers perform in masks made of jade and parrot feathers. You learn to carve glyphs that now mix Maya syllabics with unfamiliar symbols. You feel it in your bones. You're standing at the edge of something monumental, a fusion, a prophecy, a pivot point. The jungle to the south still sleeps under vines and silence, but the hills around you are alive with purpose. The Puk sings. For now, by midnight, you lie under the stars again, wondering if those shining lights above are still being counted by scribes in far-off, forgotten temples. The rain hasn't come in weeks, but the gods are many, and the roads are white, and the serpent in the sky keeps slithering forward. You've walked through a lot by now. Pyramid-stacked jungles, shamanic visions, apocalyptic droughts, and royal palaces where every floor tile whispered of betrayal or belief. But now you paddle. That's right, you're in a canoe now, slicing across a glassy, mist-covered lake in the Yucatan lowlands. The heat hasn't broken, but the air here feels still, ancient, and watching. You're drifting toward the lakeside city of Chichen Itza, and whether you're ready or not, the Itza lords are about to pull you into the second life of the Maya world, a rebirth of power from the ashes of collapse. Chichen Itza is not just a city, it's a resurrection, a political miracle, and an architectural echo from the classic age, but with a harder edge. More militarized, more cosmopolitan, less time for sacred ball games, and more for skull racks and mercantile networks. The canoe nudges a pier that's older than most of the trees surrounding it, and you climb out into a place the locals once called Uk Yabnal, or Seven Great Houses. But you just know it as the most famous Maya city ever etched into tourist brochures and conspiracy videos. But forget the alien nonsense. Chichen Itza doesn't need help being mysterious. It already has a massive stepped pyramid, El Castillo, a ball court large enough to shame a modern stadium, temples etched with warrior processions, and a deep, sacred cenote that may or may not be filled with human bones and golden offerings. Historians still argue whether Chichen Itza was ruled by dynastic kings or a council of elites. But either way, this place was a power node, a pulsing beacon in a fractured Maya landscape. The classic Maya world is splintered now. Remember Tikal and Calakmul tearing each other apart like star-crossed jaguars? That's long gone. Cities are either collapsed, cannibalized by jungle, or clinging to ceremonial significance, with no teeth left to bite. But here, at Chichen Itza, the lords of the lakes are reimagining Maya politics, like a startup with a war chest. The Itza were not old-school nobles clinging to bloodlines. These were innovators. They built an economic and religious magnet that pulled in pilgrims, traders, and warriors from across Mesoamerica. By the 9th century CE, the city is booming, and it's no jungle backwater. It has paved roads, sakbiob, colonnaded temples, astronomical observatories, and water management systems smart enough to make modern engineers blush. The big shocker? Chichen Itza isn't entirely Maya in style. Nope. The Itza elite are blending cultures like a DJ. You've got Toltec influences from central Mexico plastered all over the place. Feathered serpents, chacmuls, those reclining altar guys with offering bowls on their stomachs, and column temples that would feel more at home in Tula than in Copan. And the feathered serpent, Kukulkan, he's suddenly everywhere. Not just some celestial snake god from the old pantheon, but a public brand. He's carved along staircases, shown descending during equinox light plays, turned into a spectacle of divine geometry. Some scholars say this shift shows growing contact with Toltec central Mexico. Others claim it's an internal evolution of the Maya world, one that simply reskinned its beliefs in a new, more marketable costume. Either way, it works. And speaking of spectacles, let's talk about that ball court. You've been in ball courts before, but this one? It's a monster. 168 meters long, high stone walls, carved panels showing decapitations. Yes, again, with the head chopping, complete with streams of serpents flowing from necks. Was the decapitated player the loser? Or was it the winner, honored with a noble death? Historians still argue, and you just stand there, watching imaginary players hurl a rubber ball with their hips toward stone hoops, high above the court, your mind spinning. Then there's the cenote, the sacred cenote, a massive sinkhole about 60 meters across and over 20 meters deep, filled with emerald green water and deeper secrets. Archaeologists have dredged out bones, men, women, children, and treasures like jade, obsidian, and gold. Some were sacrificed, thrown in alive. Others, maybe not. It's hard to say. The cenote is as much myth as it is archaeology, but this lake-fed power center doesn't rise in a vacuum. Chichen Itza's rise means competition. Enter the city of Koba, older, scrappier, still important. They control trade routes to the east coast and aren't thrilled about Chichen Itza stealing the spotlight. There's tension, there's war, and eventually, there's absorption. Koba's influence wanes as Chichen Itza asserts itself. But Chichen Itza doesn't dominate forever. By the 11th century, the city begins to fade. The reasons? Still debated. Some point to drought, others to civil unrest, maybe even invasion. A few dramatic theories suggest Toltec-style betrayal or class uprising. Whatever it is, the city's golden age flickers and dims, but not before it leaves behind a monumental ghost town that whispers louder than most living cities. The Itza don't vanish though. They pull back into the shadows and bide their time. Chichen Itza's temples are left to the vines and mosses. But just north, at a place called Mayapan, the Itza and their legacy will be reborn again. The Maya aren't a people who vanish. They morph, adapt, survive, and so do you, somehow. So for now, you sit at the edge of that cenote as the sun sets, a breeze lifting the damp heat just enough to let you breathe. The feathered serpent slithers across the stone in shadow form, and the ghosts of ball players and priests whisper across the courtyard behind you. You've seen kings fall, queens rise, cities die, and others mutate into something new entirely. And you're not even close to finished. You wake to birdsong and the smell of something roasting over a fire. Not sacrifice, thankfully, but maybe tamales or tortillas sizzling on a limestone comal. You're not in the jungle today. No vines are trying to eat you. No pyramids are whispering ancient blood prayers. You've drifted somewhere quieter, somewhere practical. Welcome to the Maya market. It's sunrise in the northern lowlands. The air is gold and smells like wood smoke and crushed blossoms. Marigolds, orange, bright, and sacred. You're sitting under a canopy of woven palm leaves, tucked between a row of lime vendors and a woman selling stingray spines. When it hits you, this is the other side of empire. Not the temples, not the kings, but the tianguis, the bustling, noisy, beautifully organized open-air market. You've arrived in the post-classic period, when the big city-states have begun to fray and crack. Chichen Itza is a decaying stone lion now. Tikal is swallowed in jungle silence. But here, in towns like Mayapan, and along coastal ports like Champoton and Xcaret, something new is blooming, not in limestone, but in cacao, cotton, salt, and smoked fish. Maya civilization is shifting from empire building to network weaving. Trade becomes everything. You squint through the sun. The markets stretch as far as the eye can see. Vendors in brightly embroidered tunics shout prices in Yucatec. There's jade jewelry, obsidian knives, Copper bells, a newer innovation, bundles of vanilla pods, honey-soaked tamales, brilliant feathers, and, no surprise, a few dried human skulls with delicate glyphs carved into the forehead. Paperweights, maybe. This isn't a place of conquests. This is a place of connections. In this world, merchants are no longer just assistants to kings. They're mini lords of their own kind. Sometimes, literally, wealthy merchant families begin marrying into noble lineages. Trade isn't a side hustle anymore. It's the new nobility. And let's talk about what's on the move. Cacao beans, their currency. You want to buy a rabbit? That's 10 beans. A slave? Maybe 100. Salt, harvested from Yucatan flats and hauled in giant sacks by porters along white stone roads. Cotton cloth, so soft and tightly woven, it might as well be ancient Maya Gucci. Turquoise, obsidian, and jade, traded over hundreds of miles from as far as New Mexico, Guatemala, and Oaxaca. Copper axes and bells, introduced from West Mexico. The Maya never smelted much, but they appreciated good bronze bling. By now, the Maya world is so interconnected, it's hard to tell where one culture ends and another begins. The sea roots especially start glowing like a nervous system. Canoes gliding along the Caribbean coast like silent commerce spiders, each one packed with goods and gossip. And here's a quirky detail. You know those long-distance merchants in later Aztec times? The Pochteca? They're basically professional spies with shopping carts. Some scholars believe the Maya had an early version of this too. Merchants who doubled as information gatherers, slipping between cities, not just with cargo, but with news, threats, and bribes. At the center of this new, trade-driven Maya world is Mayapan, the last great political experiment of the lowlands. Think of it as a Chichen Itza 2.0, with a bit more bureaucracy and a lot more bickering. Founded in the 13th century by the Kokam family, Mayapan attempts to revive the old alliances through diplomacy, economics, and shared religious centers. It's a confederation, not an empire. Everyone's invited at first, but even this mercantile utopia cracks under pressure. The Kokam family tries to pull rank, and suddenly there are coups, assassinations, and vengeful nobles torching neighborhoods like it's Black Friday at the Jade Bazaar. By 1450 CE, Mayapan is gone. Poof. The great experiment ends not with war from outside, but with feuding from within. But the markets, the people, the trade routes, they don't vanish. They adapt. The Maya don't stop being Maya just because the capitals fall. The towns continue. The rituals go on. The merchants keep moving. Canoes slicing across the lagoons at dawn. Women grinding maize by the scent of marigolds and cinnamon. And here's a scholarly debate to chew on while you sip your cacao. Did the rise of trade cause the fall of dynastic power? Some historians argue that by decentralizing power, letting cities thrive on economic independence rather than royal command, the Maya world became more resilient, but also more politically fragile. Less hierarchy meant more flexibility, but also more infighting, more opportunism, and less unity in the face of external threats, like the Spanish, but we're not there yet. Tonight, you stretch out beside a fire in a small village. The stars above you burn sharp and white. There are no pyramids on the horizon, but you hear music, maracas, flutes, laughter. A trader nearby tells you she just returned from Cozumel with a basket of coral and sea salt. You realize something. You've seen the collapse of cities and dynasties, but you've never seen the Maya people collapse. They're still here, still living, bartering, dancing, building. Civilizations don't die, they transform. And tomorrow, you paddle again, north this time, toward a new horizon and the scent of rain. You wake to wind, salty, insistent wind, rattling the palm-thatched roof above your head and stirring the bright hammock you've curled into like a well-fed iguana. You're no longer in the jungle. The birds sound different here. Gulls instead of toucans. You smell the sea before you see it. Welcome to the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Sometime in the late 15th century, the sun is fierce, the coral reefs sharp, and the world is uneasy. Because if the Maya world had a final chapter before the world, they knew unraveled. This right here is it. You've reached the edge, not just the edge of a continent, but the edge of an age. Out there, past the foam-tipped turquoise sea, is something stirring. Spanish ships, wooden clouds with white wings, are on the move. But the people here don't know that yet, not fully. What they do know is that things have changed. Tikal is long gone. Copan is choked in vines. Even mighty Mayapan fell almost 50 years ago in blood and fire. The grand kings and dynastic temples have given way to local chieftains, batabs, who rule smaller, scattered provinces called Kuchkabal. It's a fractured world now. A patchwork of Maya towns, fishing villages, hilltop shrines, and trading ports. But don't mistake it for weak. Places like Tulum, Cozumel, Ekab, and Chetumal are thriving on their own terms. They're leaner, more flexible, still rich in trade, salt, honey, cacao, cotton, fish, feathers, and they know how to fight. Every town has warriors. Not the fancy noble kind, no. These ones wear cotton armor, hardened with salt water, and carry bows, javelins, and obsidian-edged clubs. You watch one such warrior clean his blade by the fire. He's got tattoos from ear to ankle, and a calm stare that tells you this place is still Maya, even if the world's spinning faster. And what a world it is. There's a coastal confederation, loose and competitive, but it helps keep things balanced. Canoes paddle in and out of Cozumel, island of the goddess Ixchel, bearing pilgrims and merchants. Tulum's cliffs rise like stone teeth from the shore, and its watchtowers scan the sea like patient hawks. But there's a sense of finality in the air. Change is coming. Inland, Maya scribes are still copying Chilam Balam texts, those mysterious books of prophecy and medicine, history and myth, written in Latin script after the conquest, but rooted in much older knowledge. These books speak of Katuns, 20-year cycles, of divine fate, of the return of gods in white skin. People begin reading the world through omens, eclipses, droughts, comets. And here's your quirky detail for the night. In places like Tulum and Xcaret, elite families may have had parrot messengers, not metaphorical ones, real parrots trained to mimic human speech, like feathered gossip scrolls. You imagine a blue and gold macaw shouting, "Chetumals at war again," before stealing your tortilla. But the politics? Oh, they're deadly serious. The Kuch Cabal aren't peaceful city-states holding hands. They raid, they feud. Alliances shift like waves. Coastal kingdoms like Cozumel become cultural and religious hubs, but also targets for conquest. By the time the Spanish arrive, Maya society is splintered, but fiercely independent. Let's rewind to 1511 CE, the real turning point. A Spanish caravel wrecks off the coast of Jamaica. The survivors drift. Most are killed or captured, but a few wash up here, in the Maya world. Two of them, Gonzalo Guerrero and Jeronimo de Aguilar, are taken as slaves. Guerrero? He doesn't just survive, he adapts, marries a Maya noblewoman, becomes a military advisor, tattooed, ear-pierced, fluent in Yucatec. He fights against the Spanish when they return, a Spaniard who chose to become Maya. It's one of the strangest, most fascinating crossovers in history. Aguilar? He goes the other way, keeps his Spanish faith, escapes, and later becomes a translator for Hernan Cortés. These two men represent the Maya world at the edge of conquest, divided between resistance and absorption, fierce autonomy, yet porous borders. Now here's your historical debate for the night. Was the Maya world already collapsing before the Spanish arrived? Or did colonialism break a still vital civilization? Some scholars argue that internal fragmentation, rival Kuch Cabal, post-Mayapan feuds, left the Maya politically weak and ripe for conquest. Others push back, saying the Eastern Maya were holding strong, innovating, adapting, even expanding their trade networks. That it wasn't weakness, it was diversity. In truth, it's both. The Spanish didn't conquer the Maya in one grand sweep. Not even close. It would take nearly 170 years of wars, rebellions, trickery, and terror to fully subjugate the region. And even then, fully is generous, because while kingdoms fell, the people endured. Tonight, the fire crackles beside you. A priest chants to Ixchel beneath the stars. Children chase a crab along the moonlit sand. You sip something warm, maybe balche, a fermented honey drink, and watch the waves roll in. You're on the edge of the world, but it's not the end. It's just the beginning of a different story. One written in survival, in stubbornness, in stars and cycles. The Maya have weathered droughts, wars, kings, gods, and collapse. What's one more empire? You wake to shouting. Not war cries, not chants. Something more nasal, less poetic. It's Spanish, and not even the elegant courtly Castilian of royal proclamations. This is Andalusian, possibly drunk, and very confused. Welcome to the year 1517, where the Spanish have finally made their debut on Maya shores. But don't expect a sleek invasion with maps, purpose, and victory speeches. No, this is the bumbling first contact between two very different worlds. And it is, frankly, a little bit of a disaster. You're lying on a mat woven from palm fronds near Champoton on the Gulf Coast. The air smells like salt, sweat, and wood smoke. The Maya here are armed, organized, and not impressed by the stinking, sunburned men who just stumbled off their ships. These men? They're led by Francisco Hernandez de Cordoba, a Spanish explorer sent from Cuba in search of slaves and gold. He's under orders, sure, but also chasing rumors. Old tales of rich cities, inland, of gold-laced temples and jade-filled tombs. Spoiler alert, he's not going to find them today, because the Maya aren't just surviving out here. They're thriving. The cities of the northern Yucatan, like Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Mani, and Champoton, have adapted. They've moved away from the giant temples and divine kings. Now it's all about the Batabs, local rulers with tight control over their towns, their warriors, and their trade. And these warriors? They wreck Hernandez de Cordoba's expedition. Spears rain down, cotton armor holds. Arrows fly from behind thick stone walls. Hernandez barely escapes. With wounds so infected, he dies soon after returning to Cuba. So what do the Spanish learn? That the Maya are fierce, armed, and organized. What do they not learn? Basically, everything else. Now, here's your quirky fact for the night. When the Spanish described Maya towns, they often said they looked like towns of Seville. That's right, limestone buildings, whitewashed walls, paved plazas, causeways. The Maya weren't huddled in huts. They had urban planning that made conquistadors blink. But back to the confusion. In 1518, Juan de Grijalva sails the same coast and sees more towns. He's more cautious, trades beads and mirrors, makes notes. But again, no invasion. Then in 1519, the real whirlwind arrives. Hernan Cortés. He stops briefly in Cozumel, meets Jerónimo de Aguilar, the Spanish friar who escaped Maya captivity years before and still speaks Yucatec. Aguilar becomes his interpreter. They continue to the Aztec heartland. You know the rest. Tenochtitlan falls by 1521, and the Spanish smell blood. But the Maya? They're not Aztec. They don't have a single emperor. No central capital to decapitate. No Montezuma to seize. No neat pyramid scheme hierarchy. So the Spanish try a new strategy. Piecemeal conquest. Here's your mainstream historical fact. The conquest of the Maya wasn't one big battle. It was dozens of campaigns over nearly 2 centuries. From 1520's raids to the final annexation of Tayasal in 1697. Yes, you heard right. 1697. That's after Isaac Newton published the laws of motion. In the early stages, Spanish commanders like Francisco de Montejo, the elder, and his son, the younger, try to conquer Yucatan. The elder lands in 1527 with a small force and is promptly bogged down by jungle, heat, mosquitoes, and constant Maya ambushes. They try diplomacy. They try alliances. They rename towns. Maya cities like Chichen Itza get Spanish garrisons, and those garrisons are immediately attacked and driven out by uprisings. It's a game of whack-a-mole with poisoned spears. So, let's pause here for your historical debate. Did the Maya ultimately fall to military defeat or to internal fragmentation? One school of thought says Spanish steel, cavalry, and guns were simply too advanced. Another argues that what really doomed the Maya were inter-Maya rivalries. The Spanish exploited old grudges, bribing one Kuch cabal to betray another. Some Maya towns welcomed the Spanish as allies against their local enemies. It's not unlike how Cortes toppled the Aztecs, with help from Tlaxcala. And yes, the Spanish had steel, horses, and ships. But the Maya had numbers, home terrain, and centuries of bitter experience with invaders. From other Maya, from the Toltecs, even from their own past dynasties. So the conquest slogs on. By 1542, the Spanish finally capture Merida, building it right over the ruins of the Maya city Tahoe. But the countryside is never fully pacified. Guerrilla fighting continues. Maya towns rebel. Others negotiate their own terms. And always, always, the Maya write. They carve. They preserve. Scribes secretly copy their Chilambalam books. Half prophecy, half resistance manual. Priests hide codices in caves, though many are burned by zealous friars. The Maya don't just endure, they adapt. They Christianize, a little. They baptize their children, but still honor old gods. They speak Spanish in public, but whisper Yucatec at home. They become servants, rebels, translators, and traders. Some even become Ladinos, blending into colonial society. Tonight, you lie on the cool limestone floor of a half-built Spanish mission. Outside, Maya builders are finishing the archways. But in their packs, hidden among tools and maize cakes, are old glyph stones, little pieces of their world. And in the moonlight, under a thatch hut nearby, a grandmother tells her grandson the story of the hero twins, not from a book, but from memory. Because the conquest, it didn't erase them, it wrote over them. And under that foreign ink, the glyphs are still there, waiting to be read. You wake not to city sounds, but the quiet symphony of the jungle. Leaves brushing against one another like old secrets. The hoot of a nightbird somewhere above. A trickle of water. The rustle of bodies nearby. Not soldiers or settlers, but rebels. It's the mid-1500s, and you're deep in the green lung of the Petén Basin. The Spanish call this place wild and godless. The Maya know better. This is sacred ground, and it's here, beneath canopies taller than cathedrals, that the resistance breeds. Not all the Maya accepted conquest with bowed heads. Some escaped into the forests. Others never surrendered at all. Cities like Tayasal, Zacpatén, and Ixtlu in the deep south stood firm, untouched by Spanish rule for over a century. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, you find yourself now among a band of Itza Maya, the descendants of the mighty kings of Chichen Itza. They were once the rulers of the north. Now they're guerrilla fighters, scribes in hiding, priests in exile, farmers with spears hidden behind maize stalks. Their capital? The lake island city of Noypeten. a fortress in the water, unreachable without boats, shielded by jungle and will. It's one of the last unconquered cities in all of the Americas. Here's your quirky fact for the night. The Spanish were so obsessed with finding gold that they completely misunderstood what jade meant to the Maya. They offered trinkets, axes, even horses to Maya rulers, who didn't flinch until the Spanish brought green glass beads. The Maya thought it was low-grade jade and accepted it with cautious reverence. Welcome to the first war where cheap jewelry bought time. But back to the forest. The Spanish try to invade Petén again and again. They come with cannons dragged through mud, with horses spooked by monkeys and macaws. They burn towns that are rebuilt days later. The Maya vanish into trees. They don't fight pitched battles anymore. They wait, strike, disappear. This is a different kind of war. No grand temple-top sacrifices. No city-states in rivalry. This is war as memory. War as identity. To resist is to survive. Your mainstream historical fact tonight. The conquest of the Petén lowlands was the longest indigenous resistance in the Americas. The city of Tayasal was not subdued until 1697, nearly 2 centuries after Columbus's first voyage. The Maya held the line longer than the Inca, the Aztec, and most native North American nations. They outlasted conquistadors, viceroys, friars, and plague. And that brings us to one of the biggest historical debates. Was this a collapse or a calculated retreat? Some scholars used to frame the jungle Maya as a fallen people, scattered after their cities crumbled. But growing evidence suggests otherwise. The Maya who left the great cities moved strategically to avoid colonial surveillance, taxation, and forced labor. The forest didn't swallow them. It sheltered them. Picture it. You crouch in a camp beside a rebel priest, carefully unrolling a hidden codex. It's not written in stone, but in charcoal ink on bark paper. Portable, sacred, and dangerous. Spanish patrols have burned hundreds of these. But this one, it has survived war, weather, and time. A mixture of Catholic saints and Maya gods share its pages. The Virgin Mary rides a feathered serpent. St. Peter holds a maize stalk instead of keys. This isn't surrender, it's syncretism. A mask worn to survive. A Maya boy sharpens obsidian points for arrows. His older sister prepares poultices of crushed bark and honey. They speak Spanish when they must, but in whispers, they use the words their ancestors carved into stone. Kin, Chak, Balam, Ahaw. Even as missionaries build churches on sacred caves, the elders return at night to make offerings. Even as encomenderos demand tribute, some batabs still collect their own secret taxes for a future revolt. The Spanish crown sends letters, requests for more soldiers, for more priests, for maps, always maps. But the jungle defies geometry. Petén is a web of lakes, caves, and illusions. Paths shift. Villages appear and disappear. The only people who truly know the land are the Maya themselves, which is why Spanish forces, again and again, fail. Until 1697, when Martín de Ursúa y Arismendi launches a full-scale assault, complete with Spanish warships dragged overland, cannons placed on rafts, and siege tactics used against the island city of Tayasal. The Maya defend as best they can. They swim out the Spanish ships under cover of night to sabotage them. They hide the old idols in caves, but the city falls. It's the last stand of the independent Maya kingdoms. The last recorded battle of pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. But not the end, because the jungle still whispers. In remote villages, the Maya keep their languages, their gods, their stories. They retell the tale of the Itza, of the forest that shielded them, of the time the world was almost taken, and how they bent but did not break. Tonight, you lie beneath a canopy so thick no starlight passes through. Around you, the forest breathes, not defeated, just hidden, waiting. And in the dark, a young rebel chants a prayer in both Yucatec and Latin. Just in case, tonight you don't drift into sleep. You descend like a diver into cenote waters, slow and suspended. You are not in the jungle, nor in the city. You are in the pages of a book that no longer exists. Bark paper folded like an accordion. Ink pressed with brushes made of agave. Every symbol alive. Every line a whisper. You're in a Maya codex. There were once hundreds of them, libraries of them, held in priestly hands and palace chambers, tracking centuries of stars, kings, crops, and blood. But now, only 4 remain. The Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices. 4 survivors of fire and zealotry. Why? Because in the 1500s, the Spanish didn't just conquer lands. They burned the Maya's entire written world. Missionaries called the glyphs works of the devil. In 1562, a fanatical bishop named Diego de Landa oversaw one of the largest book burnings in human history. Thousands of Maya texts tossed into flames in Mani, Yucatan. He would later regret it. Sort of. You watch him now, in your drifting dream state. He's pacing with guilt, torn between cross and curiosity. Later, he'll write his Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán, desperately trying to preserve what he helped destroy. His book becomes the Rosetta Stone of Maya glyphs, though it's riddled with errors and contradictions. Irony inked in Latin. But tonight, you go deeper than his regret. You're inside the dreams of the scribes. You see the glyphs as they once were, vibrant, alive. Each one a picture and a word, a sound and a story. The Maya didn't just write. They sculpted language. They carved it into stone, inked it onto codices, painted it on murals. Some glyphs are names. Pakal, Lady Six Kai, Kainich Janab Pakal. Others are places. Copan, Yachilan, Calakmul. Still others? Star cycles, bloodletting rituals, prophecies of maize and time. Here's your quirky fact. The Maya had no alphabet. Their system was logosyllabic. Each glyph could represent a whole word or a syllable. It's like if you mashed emojis, cursive and math together and expected people to chant it back flawlessly under moonlight, which they did, often. And these glyphs weren't just for reading. They were portals, painted on the cave walls to honor ancestors, chiseled into stelae to freeze kings in time, hidden in temples no outsider was meant to see. You're walking past them now in your dream, brushing your fingers over ridged limestone, each glyph humming softly under your touch. Here's your mainstream historical fact. The Maya writing system is the most sophisticated and fully developed in all of pre-Columbian Americas. And for centuries, it remained undeciphered. It wasn't until the 20th century, yes, that late, that scholars like Tatiana Proskoryakov and Yuri Konorozov cracked the code. The key came not from Europe, but from Russia during the Cold War, when Konorozov used copies of the Landa's alphabet and photos of glyphs to make a breakthrough. Imagine that. A Soviet linguist deciphering a Mesoamerican script while watching for American bombers. Which brings us to the scholarly debate of the night. Were Maya glyphs reserved only for elites and priests, or were they read more widely by ordinary people? Traditional thinking says writing was sacred, restricted to scribes and nobles. But some researchers now suggest that glyphs may have appeared on more everyday items than we assumed. Pottery, murals, even clothing. Some graffiti glyphs on palace walls hint that more people knew how to read and write than we thought. That raises a haunting question. How many stories did we lose in the fire? Not just histories of kings, but jokes, love letters, market records, songs. You're dreaming now of one such book, a codex never found. It belongs to a young scribe named Ixhun Itzam, who once lived in Uxmal. She wears a robe dotted with stars and keeps her ink in a gourd. Her codex is different. It's not about astronomy or kingship. It's a guide to dreams. Each page records visions, nighttime symbols, omens of birth and harvest. She sleeps beside it, updating it each morning. In her dreams, gods come wearing jaguar masks and breath like obsidian mist. She paints them just as they appear, half animal, half fire. She knows they're not meant for public ceremony, but she paints them anyway. Some glyphs are invented, some known only to her. When the priests discover it, they tell her to stop. She does not. One day, during a Spanish raid, she buries the codex in a cenote, wrapping it in jaguar hide and cacao leaves. She whispers a spell to the rain god Chak, and then she disappears from the record. Her codex is never found. But maybe that's for the best. Some dreams belong to the jungle. You're floating now, between tree roots and stars, between glyphs and silence. And even though the fires came, and the conquerors, and the ash, the writing survived, because stone doesn't forget, because dreams don't burn, because somewhere, deep beneath layers of time, the jungle still holds its books close. Sleep now comes gently, like mist curling through a ceiba tree's roots. But you don't slip into a ruined temple or a cosmic calendar this time. No. Tonight, you find yourself somewhere unexpected. A classroom, fluorescent lights hum overhead. A chalkboard scrawled with glyphs is at the front of the room. A teacher, a woman in her 40s, wearing a brightly woven huipil, is gently explaining to a group of 10-year-olds how to pronounce the word Baktun. Not Spanish, not English, but Yucatec Maya. Because tonight, You're not in the past. You're in the present. And the Maya? They never left. Let that settle for a moment. The jungle cities may have crumbled. The scribes may have hidden their books. The stars may have rolled on. But there are still over 6 million Maya people living across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras today. They speak more than 30 distinct Maya languages. They farm, they protest, they write poetry, they fight for land and dignity. They dream in their own tongue. In the highlands of Guatemala, grandmothers still wrap themselves in hand-woven ikat. Fathers plant milpa, corn, squash, and beans in the exact same spiral patterns their ancestors once etched into codices. Children grow up hearing bedtime stories of the hero twins battling the lords of Xibalba. It's not gone. It never was. Here's your mainstream historical fact. The idea of a Maya collapse is oversimplified. Yes, many cities were abandoned around the 9th century, but the people, the culture, endured. Through conquest, through colonization, through centuries of discrimination, the Maya adapted, rebuilt, resisted. They still are. You hear them tonight in Quiché, a mountain town where a market bustles with color and sound. A vendor is selling marigolds for Day of the Dead. Not Halloween, not All Saints' Day, but Quiche Ajkij rituals, where candles are burned for ancestors and corn is blessed with copal smoke. You ride a chicken bus down a winding road to Lake Atitlan, where shamans still consult sacred stones and interpret dreams using cards passed down for generations. A girl named Ixchel, yes, that Ixchel, carries her grandmother's bundle of herbs, chanting blessings into the wind. Then, flicker. You're at a Maya rights rally in Chiapas. People wear red bandanas and raise banners written in tzotzil. They're not protesting archaeology. They're protesting mining companies, land grabs, and government neglect. A modern continuation of centuries-old struggle. Here's your quirky fact. In some Maya villages today, courts still use traditional forms of justice based on ancient custom. That might mean a person has to apologize in front of the entire community, or sweep the local plaza as penance. Restorative justice, Maya style. But there's more to modern Maya life than tradition. There's rap, there's Twitter. There are Maya coders building apps to teach their languages. Maya poets writing about migration, identity, and coffee harvests. Maya filmmakers retelling old myths with claymation and drone footage. There are priests and atheists, feminists and conservatives, farmers and Instagram influencers. This is no museum culture. This is living history. And yet, here's the scholarly debate of the night. What does it mean to be Maya today? Is it language, dress, spiritual practice, community ties? Can someone living in Los Angeles, whose parents were born in Huehuetenango, still be Maya if they've never spoken a word of Kwanjobal? Some scholars argue identity is cultural continuity. Others say it's about choice. The Maya themselves, unsurprisingly, have their own thoughts. Many thoughts. There's no single answer, just like there's no single Maya culture. There never was, and still, they're often treated like they belong only to the past, as if Maya is something archaeologists dig up instead of people who eat breakfast, pay rent, tell jokes, fall in love, and vote. You're with one of them now. An elder named Don Mateo, walking through his cornfield in the early dawn. He taps the soil with his foot. Still breathing, he says. He points to the rising sun and whispers a blessing in Cachiquel. Then he pulls out a cell phone and texts his granddaughter to come help with the chickens. That's the Maya world, not frozen in time, not trapped in stone, but breathing, walking, teaching, tweeting, and dreaming. Yes, dreaming. Because somewhere, in a Maya school, nestled in the Guatemalan highlands, a child is learning to write her name in glyphs again. Somewhere, a Maya astrophysicist is tracking Venus with modern satellites and traditional calculations. Somewhere, a teenage boy is filming TikToks in his village's dialect, proudly tagging it Maya Strong. So, when you wake tomorrow, remember this. The ruins are not ruins. The story did not end. The gods are not forgotten. And the people are not gone. They are here. They are home. They are still writing the next chapter in code and stone and smartphones. And if you listen closely, you might just hear them calling. Tonight, sleep comes slowly, like a serpent weaving through undergrowth. You lie still, and the scent of damp earth and crushed orchids fills the air. Above you, 1,000 insects chirp in harmony, and somewhere nearby, a howler monkey roars, like a jaguar coughing in its dreams. You're deep in the jungle now. But this isn't the jungle of collapse, or of conquest, or of ruin. This is the jungle of secrets. Because what the jungle took from the Maya, it also kept. The Spanish thought they had erased them. Archaeologists thought they'd uncovered it all. But the rainforest is a jealous thing. She buries, swallows, guards. And tonight, under her canopy, you're about to discover what she never gave up. The year is today. Literally today. You're following a team of archaeologists, slicing through vines with machetes, drones buzzing overhead, scanners pinging from satellites. One of them shouts, they found something buried beneath centuries of green, beneath moss, strangler fig, and a layer of myth, lie the bones of a lost city, one no one knew was there. They name it Laguna del Jaguar, though its original name is long lost in lichen and time. But the jungle always knew it was there. She just never felt like sharing. Here's your mainstream historical fact. In 2018, researchers using LiDAR, a laser scanning technology, discovered over 60,000 previously unknown Maya structures beneath the jungle canopy in Guatemala. Cities, roads, fortifications, pyramids, whole networks, invisible to the eye but right there in the earth. It reshaped our understanding of Maya civilization almost overnight. LiDAR showed what the jungle had been whispering all along. This was never just scattered city-states. This was a civilization, complex, dense, interconnected, alive. Highways cut through the trees, stone causeways stretching dozens of kilometers, reservoirs, terraces, irrigation systems, star-aligned ceremonial centers, even defensive walls, implying warfare on a scale we once thought unlikely. And yet, the jungle had covered it all like a quilt pulled over a sleeping child. Not out of cruelty, but out of memory. Here's your quirky fact of the night. Some of these hidden cities were so remote and overgrown that their temples became cliffs, their pyramids mistaken for hills. Local animals built dens in the altar rooms. Jaguars gave birth atop royal thrones. Bats roosted in glyph-covered sanctuaries. The jungle didn't just hide the Maya world, it moved in. So what else has she kept? A jade mask clutched in a dead king's hand. A painted vase sealed inside a cave, so tight even air hadn't touched it. A glyph on a stela that contradicts everything we thought we knew about Maya alliances in the 7th century. And of course, the codices, those elusive bark paper books. So few and precious. Only 4 authentic Maya codices have survived. But rumors whisper of others, deep in vaults or private collections. Or maybe even deeper, in tombs the jungle has not yet revealed. But here's your scholarly debate. Is it ethical to uncover everything? As technology accelerates, so does access. LiDAR can map hundreds of square kilometers in days. AI can reconstruct glyphs from fragments. Deep Earth radar can detect tombs before a single root is disturbed. Yet many Maya people today argue, why must we dig up the past when we are still trying to survive the present? Should tombs be opened or left to rest? Should secrets be shared with the world or kept within the community that still carries the memory? Because what the jungle kept, maybe she kept for a reason. And tonight, as you float through the trees in dream form, you begin to see how much has stayed hidden. You pass a vine-covered ziggurat whose steps once echoed with sandalwood-scented rituals. You drift through a temple whose murals still show dancers with obsidian blades and laughing masks, but no one else is there. Just you, the trees, and the ancient breath of the world, until movement. A figure, a woman in white, face painted with cinnabar. She places a stone at the base of a tree and hums something low and ancient. You try to speak, but she vanishes between 2 ceiba trunks. You've met a guardian, not a ghost, a memory. The jungle remembers, and when you return to yourself, your body warm beneath a modern blanket, your eyes flickering beneath sleep's curtain, you realize the Maya world never fully ended. It simply stepped back, folded its maps, waited in green silence. Because while empires crumble and libraries burn, the jungle does not forget. She grows over, she wraps tight, and she waits. And when the time is right, she opens a path for those who listen, for those who learn, for those who dream. You're lying beneath the stars tonight, far from noise, far from clocks, far from countdowns. The sky above is velvet black, punched with ancient starlight. And for the first time in a long time, you feel unhurried. No emails, no deadlines, just a slow, deep breath. And maybe that's appropriate, because tonight we talk about time. Maya time, Maya calendars. And no, the world did not end in 2012. You remember it, don't you? billboards and tabloids. The Maya predicted the end. December 21st, 2012. People stocked up on canned beans, built bunkers, posted memes. But here's your mainstream fact. The Maya never said the world would end in 2012. What actually ended was a baktun, a unit of time in the Maya long count calendar that spans 144,000 days, or about 394 years. The end of the 13th baktun wasn't an apocalypse. It was more like flipping the odometer on your car. Just imagine a calendar with a bigger scale, like cosmic scale. The Maya didn't just measure time in days or seasons. They tracked cycles of galactic significance, eclipses, solstices, planetary alignments. To them, time was not a straight line, but a spiral, eternally folding into itself, repeating with rhythm and resonance. Here's your quirky fact. One Maya inscription, found at Tortuguero in Tabasco, Mexico, mentions a future date so far ahead. It's roughly the year 4072 CE. And the monument simply says that on that date, the god Bolonyokteku will appear in his full glory. So no doom, just divine drama. The truth is, the Maya were some of the most precise astronomers in the ancient world. Without telescopes, they calculated the solar year more accurately than the Julian calendar used in Europe for centuries. Their Venus table could predict the planet's rise and set with uncanny accuracy. They could track lunar phases, eclipses, and equinoxes with a kind of poetry carved in stone. Time, to them, was a sacred script. Every day had a name, a number, and a soul. Now here's your scholarly debate to end the series. Should we call it a collapse? When a people never disappeared. Yes, the great Maya cities emptied. The temples were abandoned. The long count calendar fell out of use in many areas. But the Maya people never stopped counting. They kept time differently, through ritual, through rain cycles, through corn harvests, and prayers whispered to mountain gods. And today, here in the 21st century, over 6 million Maya people still walk this world. They speak Yucatec, Quiche, Tzotzil, Quechua, and more. They grind maize on stone slabs like their ancestors did. They leave offerings in caves. They carry their stories in embroidered huipils and old lullabies. And yes, some still mark time on ancient calendars. Not to predict the end, but to understand the flow of life. So, when the Western world panicked over 2012, many Maya communities simply lit candles, offered incense, and welcomed a new cycle, not an ending, a reset, a reminder that we are always in motion. And so, as your breath slows, you feel something loosening in your chest, a weight you didn't know you were carrying, the ticking clock, the fear of deadlines, the rush. What if time isn't chasing us? What if we're dancing with it? Tonight, as your eyes drift closed, you see the calendar wheels turning, not like gears grinding down, but like celestial mandalas, smooth and humming, each ring nested inside another, each moment connected to the last. A great cycle turns, and you just one tiny spark in the dark, are part of it. So, let's whisper a blessing to the jungle, to the gods of the hills and stars, to the scribes who painted time in red and black ink, to the grandmothers who still hum the old songs by firelight, to the children who run beneath chiba trees, dreaming of pyramids and sky serpents. The Maya world never ended. It shifted, and it still echoes in calendars, in cornfields, and in hearts like yours. Good night, traveler. May your dreams spiral gently, and may your time never feel wasted.